Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Jeffrey Aro, supervising stunt coordinator for Avatar: The Last Airbender, which you can watch now on Netflix. Jeffrey, I just want to start with a project of this scale, where it's just like such a big scope and scale. I guess where does your work start in terms of like when you're coming onto this project, and how far in advance does your work start, I guess?
This was an incredibly complex and collaborative project. We started probably about 6 months out from production, just like casually having conversations and trying to figure out what we needed. And then we got our cast 6 weeks prior, but it was so much work. We actually sent them Zoom training videos to, to get them prepared. But we started with the source material, like wanted to make sure that we were paying homage to what was already created, and that we were adding depth and breadth to the mythology. We wanted to make sure that the choices we were making, fans would be able to enjoy it with the new audience.
Had you watched the show before this project? Were you like a fan of the show in its initial run at all, or did you have to catch up like when you got this role, or
So I'd
finish?
never
Okay.
watched Avatar: The Last Airbender prior to this, but I grew up watching its source material. Feng Sayok, Once Upon a Time in China, Chinese Ghost Story. Like these were all kung fu movies that this mythology was based off of. So it was so familiar to me, and I love the characters because in all of those stories, it's always about loyalty and honor and the relationships between family and friends, chosen blood. So like they're great stories with really great characters that are kind and hardworking, and there's lots of kung fu. So to work on a project like this, the mythology was so familiar to me, and I fell in love with the series. I'd say now I've watched at least 10 times, and and my boys want to be waterbenders. So it's really exciting. It's an amazing project.
Wait, you mentioned like how you're kind of like paying homage to the anime, like the way that like so the fans of the animated series are able to like feel like they're watching like something that is familiar to them, I guess. But I guess was is it tricky to like kind of adapt or transpose a lot of the stunts and the physical things that are happening in the animated series to human beings, right? Like I mean, like was that like a tricky like kind of thing to like crack at all?
Absolutely. What's challenging about this is that people love the animation, the source material so much. We wanted to make sure that we were gonna do something that really added to it, that added layers of things that are difficult to do in animation. So we started with the bending. The bending was the most challenging thing because it requires so much preparation, and for the cast to be very well trained and understand it. So that's what that 6 week boot camp is. The first layer that we wanted to make sure that they understood was breathing. So much authentic movement can be found in breath. So we just defined 4 different qigong inner energy breathing. We wanted the bending not to feel like magic. We wanted to make it feel like there was something that was internal energy qigong driven. So each bending style had its own breath. Like if you were to exhale all of the air in your lungs and breathe all the way out, there's a natural reflex that sucks the air back in, and then you push and pull, and you have water bending. It's something that just naturally happens. Combine that with the movement of Tai Chi, which was the 5 weeks of training that happened after that, gave them the foundation of movement for us to build what became water bending. And we did the same with fire bending, earth, and air. So quite challenging.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I talked to Gordon actually, and he mentioned like that the boot camp as well. I know this is a show with a lot of young actors who are. Does that change how you're going about the boot camp at all? Like working with young talent, because I know you've worked on like a lot of other projects as well, obviously in your career. So like, do you have to calibrate things differently when you're working with like teenagers and young kids or younger
Oh,
people?
yeah, absolutely. What's amazing about working with young people, they're so enthusiastic
Okay.
and willing to and capable of doing so many of their own action sequences, stunts. So what we wanted to make sure is that we had a good dialogue with them, that they understood the limitations and create a relationship with their stunt double. Our goal was to use the cast for as much of it as possible, but where most of the risk lays is in the R&D. So we'd use the stunt doubles to design the sequences, get the approval, and then those stunt doubles would become coaches to give them a shorthand to be able to the same way that Jackie Chan and Jet Li use their stunt doubles. This workflow works, especially in this kind of environment. So that relationship is so important. And then when it was something that was a high risk element, like being thrown through a wall or being fire blasted across the floor, that's when we would use the stunt doubles.
Okay, that makes sense. And you mentioned like the R&D of it. Like how much rehearsal? I get like, is it rehearsals? Like how much time do you have to perfect like a lot of those stunts? Like you're saying, where people are getting thrown around, or the more I don't want to say dangerous, but the more like elaborate stunts, let's say, right? Like those kind of things. How do you like how much time do you have to like work on those to kind of iron out the kinks?
So in a TV schedule, it is intense. It is something where you're going constantly from prep to shoot to prep to shoot to prep to shoot. So especially when we were shooting in 4 blocks, so it was a constant cycle of work. There was no rest for about 6 months, 8 months. Um, well, in terms of how we execute that, the amazing part of this project is that we had the source material. So we used that as our roadmap. And whenever we had opportunities to homage it, we would make sure that we captured those moments, because what the original animation does is they were actually very cinematic. So some of those
Mhm.
moments on Po High, when we're reaching the wall, there's the boomy fight, so great. We wanted to make sure that we took the time to give the fans those moments, especially because when you get to see Gordon flying through the air and Dallas doing incredible fight sequences, it's so amazing because they're doing it. Where we really got to do interesting and fun things is when there were sequences that didn't exist in the animation. In the first episode, there's the annihilation of the air temple, um, you know, uh, basically Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And then there's the Ozai Zuko fight, the Agni Kai. Like that is Zuko's most defining moment where he fights his father. There's so many layers of mythology we got to build in there. That firebending, to see Ozai, like Daniel Day Kim, doing quintessential firebending. He is the master, versus Zuko, who's firebending, but he's being flashy. He's trying to impress his father, and his father takes that as weakness and scars him. And that is the weight that he carries through the entire series. So we getting to build that with such incredible performers, that is such a gift. And I really feel like we got to do something really special, especially in sequences like that.
I love hearing you talk about this too, because I love how like tied to the character, like the characters, the stunts are, you know what I mean? Like it's not just like it's so embedded with the characters, right? It's like you're doing so much work with the actors to help them, like this stuff is helping them make the characters, right? And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just giving them moves. That
Right.
that was important to us. We wanted to make sure that we were treating this like a dialogue, like a conversation.
Yeah.
The goal was for them to understand it enough that they could give us input. And again, when you get athletes and performers like Daniel Day Kim and Dallas Liu, it's such a gift. We give them the structure and the conversation, and then it becomes a collaboration. It's like we get to jam.
So cool. Do you get to like, I mean, are you also, I mean, how much are you working, I guess, with like are you working with like the production design team and also like the visual effects as well in this on a show like this, where there is so much of marrying like obviously like physical things with you know visual effects, and then obviously the stunts and the performance, like all this is blending together? How much like what is that like kind of level of collaboration for you?
It was more than on any other project I've ever worked on.
Okay.
It was amazing though to have that input, because we're doing wire work, we're doing stunts. So when we were collaborating with Michael Wiley's team, we made sure that they were mats, because sometimes you can do clever things like paint and bury them, but everything needs to be thought out and planned. The Boomy Aang fight is an amazing example of that. We had an incredible set that we got to fly Gordon around. He's airbending and gliding, and we're throwing him in a lot of cases into foam ground because Michael Wiley's team was able to produce that. And then VFX, because we had such a strong plan. The challenge is when you're doing bending, it's just hand and leg motions, but we're standing across the room. So unless everyone understands it, the timing can be awkward. So because we had such a clear plan and it was so well rehearsed, became a dance, and everyone understood what was happening. It was a really challenging thing to accomplish, but because it was so well planned and everyone was so collaborative, the thing that would have stopped this is ego. But everyone took pride in their work, and everyone wanted to make sure that the project was the most important thing. And I think we accomplished that. I'm really proud of what we did.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. I mean, I think the response to the show has been good. Fans definitely seem to enjoy it, and it's like it looked like it's one of those shows where I'm like, oh, this looks obviously it's like a fantasy show, so it's not like real, right? But it looks real, and everything that's happening, especially like the physicality and the stunts, I'm just like barely giving it a second thought, which I think is a testament to your work and like the cat, like everybody's work together, right? I mean, it feels like it's just so natural, I guess.
Jabbar Rizani's VFX team are amazing. I've worked with them on Lost in Space, many projects prior to this, and their ability to dance with us is incredible. Like we have dialogue that happens so fluidly that it makes these kind of things possible. Again, if somebody's trying to dictate, it just creates a challenge in the workflow. But when we get to jam like this, we, you know, I feel like that's the best way to produce like this kind of product.
Yeah, definitely. Did you like, I mean, out of this project, like obviously there's going to be future seasons as well. Have you given thought to like, like what that might be like and like what you would want to do there? I mean, obviously, again, following the anime, obviously, as well, but like, what have you already started thinking about that?
Oh, absolutely. Again, the beautiful part of this is there is a animation that we want to make sure we are paying homage to. So that roadmap helps. So, and we're looking forward to introducing new characters like Toth. Like what's also awesome about this project is there's so many strong female characters, like the Toth and the Guitar, and their story arcs are so interesting. Um, uh, I'm looking forward to leveling up with the cast because they are willing to put the time in as they've proven. There's going to be so much more wire work. We're introducing cool characters like the Dai Li, and then when you introduce the world, these characters, the world expands. So it's only going to get bigger, and we're really excited to do it.
That's so cool. And you mentioned your I think you mentioned earlier your son's like into into the show. What was his feedback like to this? And was he like, oh man, great job, way to go, dad?
Well, it was funny because I was like, Jude, do you want a fire band? And he's like, no, dad, I want a water band. And I was like, it's amazing. He's 4 years old and he's really into it. So to be able to share something like this, you know, it's really important. We get to do a lot of projects. This is the kind of project like the movies and shows that I grew up on, the Kung Fu heroes. And culturally, it's something that's really special. I'm excited to continue sharing this with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think and I think probably a lot of families are also excited for future seasons of this as well. And they can watch the first season now. It's really great. Jeffrey Aro, supervising stunt coordinator for Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was great hearing you speak about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christopher. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you.